So my name is Bill Fennick. I work for a company called Interxion, and I run the financial services segment there. Interxion's a data center provider in Europe, a real pure play, actually. We go from Stockholm down to Madrid. And in financial services, we've got most, if not all, of the large European financial services, be it from insurance companies to the capital markets, the banks, the institutions, to the high-frequency hedge funds. What we've been doing, though, the last few years is actually looking at the fintech world, and we've been trying to understand how do we facilitate some of these fintech companies into our footprint. So in looking at fintech, we've seen that Europe is just exploding. The fintech market for Europe is just absolutely on fire. You see a lot of the investment coming in from fintech companies. But really the big thing is the opportunity in terms of the financial institutions really having a step change in their mindset. You know, the risk appetite for the financial institutions in Europe has increased tremendously. And that's what we've seen, and we've actually had a front row view of this. And what it really brings is this notion that, 20, 25 years ago, the idea of, buy IBM and you'll never be sacked has been completely thrown out the window. And it's now embrace innovation, look at disruption, see how we can keep ourselves current and to ensure that we're not made obsolete. And what we're going to do here today is talk a little bit about the theory of how we've facilitated some of these fintechs via the cloud. But what I want to do is I want to hand over to an actual success story in Europe, one of the companies we've been working very closely with in Zurich, Sayula, and then I'm going to jump on afterwards and talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure behind it. But I want to hand it over to Danny to talk about one of the successes that we have.
Which way do I have to go here? Right. This is the company Sayula. The product is Countify. Just go to page 55 and you'll see more information about myself, even a little 27-second video. Okay, breaking news. Swiss financial institution becomes a global leader using cloud technology. At the last week of August, where the Chinese bad weather came in the economy, we saw the Dow Jones index tank 10%. Shanghai then went down 8.5%. And then the Dow Jones dropped 1,000 points within 6 minutes. This was a disaster or a disturbance that we haven't seen for the last 4 years. So what does this mean? We have a derivatives trader who was looking at the situation. He was ready to trade on that day where the New York Stock Exchange opened. And he noticed all of a sudden his prices went red. He knew that something was wrong with the system. And then he immediately knew that he could go down and drill down very quickly and identify that, sure enough, he had no more prices. That means he was out of the market, losing lots of money. But he knew exactly where the problem lied, and he saw the formula. He tweaked it. And then he pressed his ludicrous button, just like in the Tesla Auto, and he was back online within 5 seconds. Okay, he was back up. He was so excited when he saw everything turn green. I mean, he shot out of his chair, kicked that chair back into his colleague, and yelled out, "Hey, we're back in the race." So what did we do for him with this ludicrous button? Going back 10 years in time, this derivatives trader created all his models in Excel. He became very efficient. It was quick. He could get his ideas out onto the market and immediately duplicate it. But over a 7-year period of time, he was so successful, he was too fast as the market was changing that it caused his IT no longer could keep up with him. So where he was fast, he became slow. Where he was making money, he was having lots of downtime. And soon his margins and the key for him to make money were vaporizing. So that's when we came in, and that's what the tipping point was. He knew he didn't have much time left. So we came in, and within a 2-year period, we gave him a brand new solution. It's the equivalent of racing a Formula One car. I mean, he basically has full control now today. He does not have IT involved anymore. They just set up standard systems, and he can just simply create his new environment. So now he's back in the race. He's got total cost of ownership under control, and he's quick. What this has done for him, it has allowed his bank now to go and out onto the global market and press out. And he's now winning the races, while others on that particular day, when he was in the race, his fellow banks were out of the race. But the key here is the solution that we gave him allows him to be creative. It allows him to fail very quickly. And the key of failing is that can he recover fast enough? And that's exactly what he does. He improves every day his algorithms, tests them out. If it's wrong, he does it again until he gets a winning formula in place. What I would like to do now is hand over the discussion to my colleague, Christian, where he is going to go through under the hood and show you what he did with that engine. Christian.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Danny. So I'm Christian Alzati. I'm the main developer of the technology of Sayula. I founded, well, actually, Danny and I founded Sayula really quite a long time ago. And we've actually been very happy with what we have seen with our deployment in Switzerland. And this has made a big, big impression in like the kind of things that we want to do. And it has given us, let's say, the endorsement of a major financial company to say that the product that we have is very meaningful and very powerful. So anyway, that's just the beginning. I want to show here, this is very quickly, like what is an enterprise solution? And that's what we have currently. It's an enterprise solution that we call Anima Enterprise, and that's what the Swiss bank is actually using. Well, enterprise still depends on IT, and that's what you see here, like all these, penitents, the poor users that are powerless, that are trying to go to heaven, but IT is blocking the entrance, and they cannot do anything. Next one. So this is Anima, and this is what is currently running in the Swiss institution. As you can see, we call this stateful because what it is that there is still a lot of state that has been kept in the whole architecture of the system. So we have, for example, like all the engines that you see there, and then what they do is basically they replicate a spreadsheet engine logic. So they replicate Excel. But in a much more efficient way. So this is actually running, it could run on Windows, could run on Linux, whatever you want. But the current, as you can see, it's not nice, it's not very clean. You have lots of connections. For example, the engines have to know about the clients. There are TCP, IP sockets everywhere. The HTTP uses polling from Apache. I mean, everything. It was a workable solution at the time, but it's very clear that it's already past its days, right? So what we have now, if you can switch, Danny. Okay, so this is now, this is our stack now, what we have. So that you can see now it has changed a lot. There is no connection directly with the clients anymore. We have the Redis pub/sub bus between all the engines and the nodes that run Node.js that are actually talking to the clients. And in this case, the clients are Excel or Google Chrome. And we use, of course, all the open source interfaces like REST, Socket.io, Express, AngularJS on the client side, which has been a real blessing. And by the way, we designed the system in such a way that it's always RESTful. So basically, if for any reason, for example, the WebSocket doesn't connect, you can still use it because all the requests are doing via HTTP. So it's really not a problem. The sockets are only used for real-time update data that is being pushed from the server side. Okay, so now I go into the demo mode, and if you can switch to the machine, yeah. What you see here, this is the Chrome browser, and in the Chrome browser you see just a page that has been produced through the system, and of course it's already ticking, and you will see when I go back into Excel how this was produced. I'm not going to show you how it was produced, but you will immediately realize that it was actually done very quickly. So this is just one example. But what is also critical here is to see that some of the logic that you see here is actually is custom logic. So it's custom logic that is running from the server side. And that logic is exactly the same logic that will run in Excel. And that makes a huge difference. So for example, I'm going to go back now to Excel here. This is the user interface that we have in Countify. And what I'm showing you here is, let me just switch to libraries. This looks a lot like the App Store, doesn't it? So what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to create a single point, like a one-stop shop, where you can get all your analytics, for example. In this case, we have a number of analytics. And bear in mind that this is a prototype. So the type of products that we're showing there are not really production ready. But we have things, for example, like QuantLib, which is a big financial analytics library. We have option pricing from Espen Hogg. We have option pricing from Wellmont. We will have numerics eventually, and we are trying to get FinCAD as well. So what happened is, for example, let's say that I want to bring the Wellmont library in here. So simply click, with a few clicks, this one is free, so I will just buy it. Brings the function stubs into Excel. And now if you go into the Excel wizard, you will see that those functions are there. So just in a matter of seconds, basically I have extended Excel. And all of these functions that you see there are readily available for you to use, but of course they're running in the cloud. And those are exactly the same functions that if you export your model into the cloud will be used. So you can be assured that whatever result that you get in here, you will have it okay. So the same, and I didn't show you here, the same thing is for data as well. So we have data, financial data, for example. I'm just going to go and do a quick import there. Click, click, import internal function. And right there, so we have that. So there you go. So that's it. If I can just show the last slides, Danny, and I'm done. Okay, so now, we're coming, I'm trying to show here, now we are reached, or that's what we're trying to reach, what we call a stateless bliss, in which you have now the user here, which is very peacefully minding his own business, working really about the next algorithm that he wants to build. IT has been defeated, is that beast right there. Audit and compliance seems to be happy, and we, Sayula, have given the way through Countify to reach the heaven in the clouds through Interxion and the hybrid cloud. So there you have it. Bill.
So thanks, guys. That was brilliant. What we wanted to do is just show a success story of actually a company that has executed. What we see a lot of brilliant ideas out there. We see always the cleverest person in the room with a brilliant idea. But what we love to see even more so is the execution of this brilliant idea. And what are some of the parameters? What are some of the requirements of having to execute on your idea, on your product, on your solution? And those are the things that we were looking at. And one of the questions we asked is, when do you start investing in the proper infrastructure? Because to go in and do a really sexy demo and get a C-level person excited is great. We all love that. But to actually bring it through the compliance departments in a large financial institution, to have procurement tick the box, you have to really understand what are the actual lists, or what is the list, and what are the boxes that need to be ticked. And so we did a bit of market research, chatting with clients to see when do people, when do companies, when do startups start investing in the actual infrastructure? And we thought, was it the origin of the idea? Is it when they started to mortgage their house for funding for 6 months, crowdsourcing, et cetera? We came finally to the conclusion that there is no set template. There is no standard. It depends on which clients they're going after, and it depends on what the company is. So it's a real chicken and egg scenario of when the company really wants to invest. We talked about cloud here, and it's fantastic. Sayula was able to access a much larger market by going into the cloud. But what the clients ask is, which cloud are you on? Are you on the Amazons? Are you on the Microsofts? And where actually is your data? Really important to understand where are the servers held, where is your data being stored? Is it being stored in the cloud? Then you might have some problems with some of the regulation and the compliance. And so we were able to actually bring to a fairly large degree conclusions that if they have a tick box that says, my data is actually on the cloud, and my data is being stored in this country, then they're able to overcome a lot of the regulatory requirements that might prohibit some of the success. And that's where we're starting to look at some of the actual hybrid and putting their servers right next to the Azures of the world or the AWSs, et cetera. So that's the end. We've got a few minutes left for some Q&A, so we thought we'd open it up.
Okay, so we have 3 questions. The first is for Bill. Do you see Microsoft Azure and AWS to be your competition?
Yeah, so that's a question from a data center perspective that we get quite often. We actually see it as very complementary. We have the points of presence for a lot of the cloud providers within our data centers, and what we see is that a lot of the clients are trending more towards not only the public cloud, but very much a hybrid cloud, to understand where exactly their data is being stored and where the infrastructure is actually being held. So we see it as very complementary, actually, the cloud and the data center.
The next question is for Christian. Could you elaborate on the future technical roadmap of Sayula?
Yes, very much. We have one of the next things that we want to do is to introduce FIX also as part of the open architecture that we have here, so that basically you will be able to also create on the fly, probably using Excel, a fixed interface that you will deploy, and then you will use Excel also to get, to use this as a blotter, for example. So then in that way, we're actually moving from just decision support, which is what it basically is now, into an actual trading platform. The other thing that we want to do, which is also very important, is we want to do publishing. And this is quite, a really important concept. What it is I didn't show you this, but for example, just as libraries, we also provide market data sources. Any market data source, that's the idea. So that if you have the add-in and you are connected, you pay the subscription to the data source and you get it. But what about any other data that people want to publish? So that what we're going to do is also make it very easy, just like in the Apple App Store. Basically, you register yourself as an official data provider, let's say, and then using Excel, you can publish whatever data you want that will be based on your own analytics or analytics of other people that have published to the platform. So basically, we want to create sort of kind of like an ecosystem with all of that.
Okay, and just to keep things fair, I have a question for Danny now. Are your analytics restricted to structured derivatives and financial services?
That's a very good question. We built a solution that it's generic. So if you look at the data source, then yes, you'll see it's just financial. But the data source can be anything. In fact, you can look at now sports. Can you switch to the other machine? There are now real-time feeds out there. We did a proof of concept, and sure enough, we can now bring sports data into our environment, and it allows it to be analyzed. Just imagine now with fantasy football coming along. I mean, it's amazing how the market is, and if you can give fans the same kind of technology, they can do their own analysis and see whether they can beat the margins. Thank you.